Welcome back to the deep dive. We're jumping into the world of UFOs today and government secrecy and some really big claims.
Sounds intriguing.
It is. It is. So, we've got this interview with Dr. Stephen Greer.
Okay.
And, he's a prominent figure in ufology, though maybe a bit controversial.
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Greer's been investigating UFOs for decades now.
Right, right.
He's talked to a lot of whistleblowers,
Yeah.
high-ranking officials, and paints a picture of reality.
Yeah.
That's pretty different from what most people think.
Different and unsettling, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Like he talks about this shadow government with,
Right.
crazy technologies.
Unbelievable, yeah.
And some of them may be coming from, reverse engineered alien craft.
Wow.
And then he claims they're staging events, to kind of throw people off the scent.
Keep it all under wraps.
Exactly, maintain the secrecy.
Yeah. So where do we even start with all this?
I mean, it's a lot to unpack.
It is.
One of the things that really jumped out at me, though, was this claim that he debriefed almost 1,000 people
That's a huge number.
with top secret clearances.
Yeah, and he even suggests this shadow government has been around since at least the mid-20th century,
Oh, wow.
maybe even earlier.
So this wasn't just some, hobby for him.
No, he built a network, like a vast network of contacts.
Right. So how did a doctor even get into all of this?
Well, his fascination with UFOs goes way back
Okay.
to his childhood, actually.
Oh, wow.
He had a sighting when he was young, and even claims he had this profound near-death experience,
Oh, wow.
followed by an encounter with a non-human being.
Wow.
So that early exposure,
Right.
along with his medical background, probably shaped his perspective on things.
So a really unique lens to be looking at this through.
Yeah, for sure.
But okay, let's get back to this shadow government.
Okay.
Is there anything, historically that supports this idea, or is this purely speculative?
Well, Greer connects the rise of this shadow government to studying recovered extraterrestrial vehicles.
Okay.
He mentions this document from 1950, the
Right.
Wilbur Smith document,
Right.
that supposedly confirms that the U.S. was researching reverse engineering alien tech.
Wow.
And he even claims this research led to gravity control tech.
Okay.
That was working as early as 1954.
1954. That's before people even really knew what a UFO was.
Right?
Like you're saying that flying saucers were zipping around while we were listening to Elvis on the radio.
That's exactly what he's saying.
Wow.
He thinks a lot of those UFO sightings,
Uh-huh.
even some of the famous ones,
Yeah.
could actually be these man-made craft.
Hmm.
For instance, the 1952 Washington, D.C. UFO flap.
Okay, yeah.
That's considered a landmark case.
Right.
He believes that was a demonstration of advanced U.S. aircraft,
Oh, wow.
staged to mislead the public.
So he's basically rewriting aviation history,
In a way, yeah.
claiming we had this advanced tech way before we thought.
Mm.
But what about all the accounts of alien abductions?
Right.
Close encounters, physical evidence.
This is where Greer brings in this really unsettling concept of staged events.
Staged events.
Yeah.
Like fake alien abductions.
Exactly. He thinks this shadow government has the tech and the reason to manipulate public perception.
Oh, wow.
Maybe they're using advanced holographic projections,
Uh-huh.
electromagnetic manipulation,
Wow.
or even genetically engineered beings designed to look like aliens.
That's pretty chilling.
It is.
But wouldn't staging something that big take huge resources?
Yeah.
And wouldn't there be a big risk of getting caught?
I mean, that's a good point.
What evidence does he actually have to support this claim?
He claims he has concrete evidence, documents, photographs, and testimonies from a lot of credible witnesses.
Okay.
He even describes specific times when high-ranking officials, presidents, intelligence agency directors,
Uh-huh.
tried to investigate these covert programs and were blocked or threatened. He even said he was offered $2 billion by a high-ranking military official
Wow.
to help manage public perception of these programs.
Hmm.
An offer he says he turned down?
$2 billion? That's hard to even imagine.
It is.
So he's definitely putting himself at risk by speaking out.
Definitely.
What's the goal of this shadow government?
Well, according to Greer, their motives are kind of complex.
Okay.
He thinks they want to keep control over these advanced technologies,
Mm-hmm.
technologies that could revolutionize energy, transportation, even warfare.
Right, right.
They're afraid of the changes these breakthroughs could bring,
Hmm.
the economic upheaval, the societal upheaval.
Yeah.
And on top of that, he thinks they're trying to create this fear
Okay.
around extraterrestrial life
Uh-huh.
so they can increase militarization and gain global control,
Oh, wow.
all under the guise of defending Earth from this alien threat.
That sounds like something straight out of a movie.
Right, like a sci-fi thriller.
Yeah.
And he even says those recent drone sightings that caused a stir
Mm-hmm.
were staged to push this agenda.
Mm.
And he points to people like Lou Elizondo,
Right.
who's become a big name in the UFO discussion.
Exactly.
He claims they were put there to push this story of an extraterrestrial threat, to
Wow.
downplay human involvement in all this advanced technology.
So it's like a deliberate campaign to mislead the public
That's what he's saying.
and control the narrative around UFOs.
Yep,
This raises a big question, though, right?
it does.
If someone like Greer, with his experience and connections, can be misled or manipulated,
Yeah.
then how are we supposed to figure out what's true?
It's tough, right? I mean, how do we tell truth from fiction?
It's a tangled web.
It is.
Okay, but we've been talking a lot about control and secrecy. But what about these technologies themselves? Like Greer mentions things like anti-gravity propulsion,
Yeah.
scalar weapons, even psionic capabilities.
It does sound like science fiction.
It really does.
But Greer says these technologies are real. They're working and they've been around for decades.
Okay.
He describes visiting these supposed black sites where he saw them firsthand.
Oh, wow.
He gives detailed accounts of specific projects and the people involved, and a lot of times he backs up his claims with documents and witness testimonies.
And I remember he even talked about this site where he saw them testing man-made UFOs
Yeah.
and like shooting them with electromagnetic pulses.
To see how tough they were.
Exactly, like they were getting them ready for real-world use.
And it goes beyond just testing.
Really?
Yeah, he describes cases where this group used these technologies and people got hurt
Oh, wow.
or even killed because of these electromagnetic weapons tests. And there are stories of people being abducted and experimented on,
Wow.
both in the U.S. and in other countries.
This is where it starts to get really dark.
It does.
He says they're targeting people with certain genes or psychic abilities,
Yeah.
exploiting vulnerable people in war zones or disaster areas.
For their psionic research.
Right, and for who knows what else.
Yeah, that claim about psionic abilities, though,
Mm-hmm.
does that even make sense scientifically?
That's a good point.
Or is that all speculation?
We got to be careful here, right?
We do.
It's easy to get swept up in the more out there parts of what Greer's saying,
Yeah.
but we need to think critically about everything.
Absolutely.
It's a lot to process.
It is.
And I feel like we've only just scratched the surface.
We have. We've only just started to explore what all of this could mean.
Right.
He's challenging everything we think we know
Yeah.
about technology, history, even reality itself.
I'm definitely feeling a little overwhelmed,
I can understand that.
but also really intrigued.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here?
Well, in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to look at what Greer thinks we can do about all this,
Okay.
about the manipulation and the secrecy,
Okay.
and we'll explore his C5 contact protocol.
Okay.
It's a pretty different approach to dealing with this whole situation.
Now I'm really curious.
I bet.
Okay, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back with more of this deep dive.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we're back and ready to kind of keep digging into Dr. Greer's world. But left off on kind of a, bleak picture.
It was pretty dark.
But I understand he doesn't just leave us there.
No.
He has some ideas about what to do about it.
Yeah, he does.
He proposes this C5 contact protocol
Right.
to counter all this manipulation and secrecy.
Exactly.
So what is that? What's the C5 contact protocol?
Well, it's a way of using human consciousness
Okay.
to interact with extraterrestrial intelligence
Okay.
in a peaceful and positive way.
So it's not about building bigger telescopes or sending out radio waves.
Not exactly, no.
It's more about like tapping into a different kind of communication.
That's the idea.
Okay, I'm trying to wrap my head around this, but
Yeah.
if this shadow government is as powerful as he says,
Right.
wouldn't they be able to intercept or disrupt these attempts to communicate?
Well, Greer thinks this communication happens on a level we don't really understand yet.
Okay.
It's not about the technology we know.
Uh-huh.
It's about consciousness itself.
So we can kind of bypass their tech control by using something more fundamental.
That's the idea.
Okay, but what about the ethics of all this?
Right.
If we're inviting contact with beings from other planets,
Yeah.
couldn't that put us at risk?
This is where Greer's medical background comes in.
Okay.
He's big on ethical considerations and safety protocols.
Yeah.
He says the C5 contact protocol
Uh-huh.
is designed to attract friendly extraterrestrial civilizations
Okay.
and discourage contact with any that might be dangerous.
So it's like we're putting out a welcome mat,
Sort of.
but with a big warning sign. Only friendly aliens allowed.
Yeah, something like that.
But how can we be sure these beings, even if they are friendly,
Right.
wouldn't still pose some kind of risk that we haven't thought of?
Well, Greer acknowledges there's always uncertainty
Right.
when you're dealing with the unknown.
Yeah.
But he argues that the potential benefits of peaceful contact
Uh-huh.
outweigh the risks.
Especially considering what he says about this shadow government.
Exactly.
So he's saying maybe these benevolent extraterrestrials
Yeah.
could help us with some of the challenges we face.
Maybe give us guidance, help us move towards a more positive future.
Like we're saying, hey, we need a little help down here.
Something like that.
But, he also mentioned this cruise he's organizing.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Where people are going to be doing this C5 contact protocol out on the ocean.
It's like a spiritual retreat meets science experiment.
Right.
He's inviting people to join virtually, too.
Oh, wow.
So it's a global network of people all participating in this effort.
That's really interesting.
It is.
But let's not forget about disinformation.
Right, that's a big part of this.
Like he talked about this Chris Bledsoe,
Okay.
who claims he can summon orbs.
Yeah, and he showed a photo from one of these events,
Uh-huh.
and it shows this strange figure,
Right.
like something out of this world.
Exactly.
Greer seems to think something real is happening,
Yeah.
but he also thinks Bledsoe might be getting manipulated.
It's like there's something real there,
Mm-hmm.
but it's being twisted.
Yeah.
Maybe to fit a certain agenda.
Maybe intelligence agencies or other groups are trying to use Bledsoe's abilities.
Hmm.
Greer actually compared it to the case of Richard Doty.
Okay.
He was an intelligence operative who admitted to spreading lies about UFOs
Oh, wow.
back in the 70s and 80s.
So it's like a hall of mirrors.
Right. How can you tell who's telling the truth
Exactly.
and who's trying to trick you?
And Greer even suggests that some of the scariest stories about alien abductions.
The ones with physical harm and experiments.
Right.
He thinks those might actually be staged events,
Wow.
orchestrated by these covert human groups.
So they're using advanced tech to make it look like aliens.
That's what he's saying.
He told this one really disturbing story.
Oh, yeah.
From a former Marine, Michael Herrera.
I remember that one.
Herrera says he was on a humanitarian mission in Indonesia,
Uh-huh.
and he and his platoon came across a man-made UFO,
Wow.
and they saw them loading crates onto this UFO.
What was in the crate?
People who've
great
been
driver.
abducted,
Wow.
and he said they were being targeted for their psionic abilities.
Okay, so that ties back to what we were talking about before.
Exactly.
But why would they abduct people for that?
Well, Greer thinks these abilities
Right.
are like a powerful resource
Uh-huh.
that this shadow government wants to control and weaponize.
Makes sense.
And he even said that a high-ranking military official,
Who was it?
General Stuttlebine,
Okay.
offered him $2 billion
Wow. Again with the $2 billion.
to help exploit these abilities for the military.
So they're serious about this.
Yeah, serious and scary.
It is pretty disturbing
And he thinks these programs are still going on.
that people are still being taken and experimented on.
He even said the recent reports of UAP injuries.
The ones some people are blaming on extraterrestrial craft,
Yeah.
he thinks those are from human experimentation.
And the misuse of this advanced technology.
Wow.
This is a lot to take in.
It is.
So if this shadow government is as powerful and entrenched as he suggests,
Mm-hmm.
is there any hope of stopping them?
Greer thinks so.
Okay.
He says we need a multi-pronged approach.
Okay, like what?
Public awareness and education,
Okay.
whistleblower protection and amnesty programs,
Mm-hmm.
congressional hearings and investigations,
Hmm.
international cooperation,
Okay.
and, of course,
Yeah.
peaceful contact with those benevolent extraterrestrial civilizations.
So it's a combination of exposing the darkness and reaching out to the light.
That's a good way to put it.
But how can we as individuals actually make a difference?
That's the big question, isn't it?
We've uncovered some really unsettling stuff here.
We have.
Hopefully there's some light at the end of the tunnel.
I think so.
We'll have to see what Greer has to say about that.
In the final part of our deep dive.
That's coming up next.
Stay tuned.
All right, so we've explored Dr. Greer's pretty alarming claims about this shadow government controlling these advanced technologies and kind of manipulating events on this global scale.
It's a lot to take in.
It is.
But the question is, what do we do about it?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? I mean, they seem incredibly powerful.
Well, Greer believes that their power comes from secrecy,
Okay.
from deception. So the first step
Yeah.
is to expose what they're doing.
Shine a light on a truth.
Exactly.
But is that even possible?
Well,
We've heard some pretty scary stories about
Yeah.
what happens to people who try to speak out.
right.
Wouldn't they be able to silence anyone who gets too close?
Greer acknowledges the risks,
Yeah.
but he says what's important is collective action.
Okay.
It's not just about one person speaking out.
Uh-huh.
It's about a lot of people demanding transparency,
Right.
demanding accountability.
Strength in numbers.
Exactly, and he's working to build that movement.
So it's not about lone whistleblowers taking on the system.
No.
It's about creating a movement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how does he propose to do that?
Well, he's been talking to members of Congress
Okay.
about creating whistleblower protection programs and amnesty for people who are involved.
So a way for people to come clean without fear of getting in trouble.
Right.
But is that realistic?
I mean, it's a tough question.
Can you really offer amnesty to people who might have done illegal things?
Well, Greer believes that by making it safe for people to come forward,
Uh-huh.
more people will speak out and expose what's going on.
So more people will be willing to share the truth.
Right, and he's also pushing for congressional hearings,
Okay.
investigations, using the government's power
Right.
to hold people accountable.
So two-pronged approach.
Yeah.
Protect the people who speak out and
Mhm.
investigate the wrongdoing.
Exactly.
But, Greer also seemed really worried about these technologies.
Yeah.
Falling into the wrong hands?
He mentioned this group being transnational.
Right, like operating outside of normal countries?
It's a scary thought.
It is, right? Technologies that could change everything.
Revolutionize energy, transportation.
Maybe even fix climate change.
But they're locked away, controlled by this secretive group.
With their own agenda.
And who knows what that agenda is?
He even compared it to what happened with Nikola Tesla, the
Oh,
inventor.
right.
Came up with all these incredible ideas about electricity and wireless communications.
Yeah, but a lot of his projects never happened.
Exactly.
Why not?
Well, Greer thinks it's the same thing happening here.
Okay.
A small group controlling knowledge that could benefit everyone, but they're keeping it for themselves.
Greed and power.
Yeah.
On a massive scale.
So how do we break that?
Well, Greer seems to think we need a change in consciousness.
Okay.
A shift away from fear and division towards unity and cooperation.
Okay, but how do we do that?
He even suggests that contact with these benevolent extraterrestrials could help.
Wait, aliens are going to solve our consciousness problem?
Well, maybe not directly.
Okay.
But he thinks these civilizations might have some insights.
Uh-huh.
They've already dealt with the challenges we're facing.
Right.
Maybe they can guide us, help us evolve, create a better world.
That's pretty optimistic considering everything we've been talking about.
It is.
But it seems like we're getting pretty spiritual here.
I guess so.
How does this connect to the government secrecy and the technologies?
Well, Greer sees it all as connected.
Okay.
He even told a story about talking with a theologian.
A theologian?
Yeah, Monsignor Balducci.
Okay.
He was a senior advisor to Pope John Paul II.
Wow.
And even he acknowledged that there might be extraterrestrial life.
So even the Catholic Church is open to the possibility?
It seems that way.
But the theologian also said that aliens weren't responsible for miracles or demons.
Right, so it's about being discerning.
Yeah.
Figuring out what's real and what's not.
Okay, so Greer's saying we need to be skeptical,
Mm-hmm.
but also open-minded.
Right.
Question everything, but don't rule anything out.
Exactly.
He even talked about the dangers of the UFO subculture.
Okay.
Getting too focused on the sensational stuff, or just trying to prove aliens exist without really thinking critically.
He thinks we need a more nuanced approach. Okay. One that recognizes that this is a complex subject.
Right.
And that there could be both real phenomena and deliberate deception.
So he's trying to elevate the UFO discussion, move it away from conspiracy theories.
And into a more serious scientific realm.
But he's also making some pretty extraordinary claims himself.
That's true.
So we need to be careful.
We do.
Evaluate the evidence, come to our own conclusions.
Absolutely.
The deep dive has been quite a journey.
It has.
We've gone from government cover-ups to secret technologies.
To consciousness and extraterrestrials.
And a call for a global awakening.
It's a lot.
It is, but whether you believe everything Greer says or not, he's raising some important questions.
He is.
About government transparency, technology, and the nature of reality.
He wants us to think differently about the world.
He definitely gives us a lot to think about.
It does.
If even a little bit of what he's saying is true.
Yeah.
What does that mean for us?
For our understanding of history, of technology.
That place in the universe.
Big questions.
It makes you wonder if there are forces at play that we're only just starting to understand.
Forces beyond our current comprehension.
The biggest takeaway for me, though, is the need to think critically.
Absolutely.
Question everything.
Especially in a world with so much information.
Right. Recognize that there's manipulation and disinformation everywhere.
Be careful what you believe.
Exactly. Seek out different perspectives.
Have open and honest conversations.
Even when those conversations challenge what we think we know.
That's how we grow.
This is definitely challenging my thinking.
Mine too.
And it makes me wonder...
About what?
If these technologies really do exist, if these benevolent extraterrestrials are out there, what role do we each play in shaping the future?
It's a question worth asking.
Could we be on the verge of something big?
A shift in consciousness.
A more peaceful, just sustainable world.
It's possible.
It's a lot to think about.
It is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a fascinating conversation.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring.
And keep looking up.